Hello, welcome to this video on the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, a collection of spiritual teachings on awakening, on spiritual awakening. Today we will see 3 verses from that collection. The first one is 133. 133. Atattvam indrajālābham idam sarvam avasthitam. Kim tattvam indrajālasya iti dārḍhyāc chamaṃ vrajet. So, idam sarvam, all this, whatever appears, all phenomena, all experiences, the whole world, the whole reality, all this, sarvamidam, atattvam, is without reality. There is no reality in any of this, outside or inside. There is no reality. Why? Indrajālābham, because it's just an appearance of a magic trick. Indrajāla, a magic trick. It's just the appearance of a magic trick. All that avasthitam seems to exist, it seems to be there of its own, on its own side, independently of what we think, what we imagine, what we project on it. But in fact, it's without reality. It's just like a magic trick. Kim tattvam, what reality, what being, indrajālasya, is there in a magic trick? What being, what reality is there in a magic trick? Iti dārḍhyāc, when one realizes that clearly, definitely, in a stable, in a firm way, dārḍhyāc, because one is absolutely certain of that, then chamaṃ vrajet, one goes to peace and to healing, to inner spiritual healing. One is no more suffering from the fever of samsara. So everything is like a magic trick, and there is no other basis of it beside consciousness. There is no matter. Matter is a magic trick. And everything that is supposedly based on matter is also a magic trick. There is only consciousness. So this is the kind of understanding that is very much praised in Vedanta and somehow in Buddhism. But in Kashmir Shaivism, it's not so important. And in fact, Kashmir Shaivism, Tantric Yoga, prefers to stress that everything is a manifestation of consciousness, is more like an artistic show, a creation, the creation of an artist, of a dancer, of a musician, of a comedian, of someone who plays a character on the stage of consciousness. Consciousness is the stage. Consciousness is the director of the whole show, is the character, is all the characters, and is everything, in fact. So Kashmir Shaivism would agree that everything is magic, but more in a positive sense, not in the sense of just a big lie, the matrix, and so on. More in the sense of an incredible, wonderful, blissful magic show. And perhaps the word magic is connected with the Sanskrit word maya. And consciousness is the great Mayavini, the great magician. Consciousness is the great magician because she can manifest herself and believing that it's something other than herself, She can hide in her own manifestation. She can make us have us believe that she is absent in her own presence, and and that is pure magic. That is pure wonder. So Kashmir Shaivism, Tantric Yoga would agree that, in a sense, everything is magic, but not in the sense of, oh, I feel that I'm being lied to, that I'm being deceived, and I should become independent of all that and remain neutral and escape from it and remain just a mere witness without feeling anything, or not not feeling what I feel, doing as if I was not feeling anything. Kashmir Shaivism would rather advise an attitude more of tasting, much more like a play, a movie, a story, a creation, a landscape, a painting, a piece of music. This is the proper stance to be free in this life, Jivan Mukti, according to Kashmir Shaivism. It's not to escape and to become udasina, like to become aloft. No, that's not the spirit of Kashmir Shaivism. Next verse, 134. ātmano nirvikārasya jñānaṃ kriyā jñānāyattā bahirbhāvā ataḥ śūnyam jagat. So this is, in a sense, even less Kashmir Shaivism. This is even more Buddhist or Sankhya or Vedanta, I don't know, I'm not sure. But this does not sound much like Kashmir Shaivism, even though, let's translate that. Given that ātmano nirvikārasya, given that the self, our true nature and the true essence of everything, given that the absolute, the self, has no form, even in an abstract sense. It has no structure, no front, no behind, no above, no below, but it has also no parts, no different faculties or whatever. And it's without vikara, without modification. It does not change. So this would be more like the Buddhist argument. I will explain it later. ātmano nirvikārasya, given that the self is without form and without changing its form, without alteration, without modifications, and also in the sense of, in a negative sense, that is in the sense of taking birth and becoming grown and old and then dying and so on. Given that the self does not change at all, like space, jñānaṃ, where in the self, that is how, can there be any cognition, any perception, any thought, any memory, any imagination, any judgment, any cognition? Kriyā, or how can there be any action in the self, given that the self does not change? So here, the idea is very much a Buddhist line of objecting to the Brahmanical theory of a permanent self. Because according to the Buddhist, the defenders of the self, of a permanent self, say that the self is omniscient and omnipotent. It can know and do everything. But according to the Buddhists, the Buddhists say this is not coherent. This is not possible, because to know is a form of action, because it's a verb. The verb to know, knowing. And action is, of course, an action. So both are action. So to say that the self, eternal self, permanent self, can know and act means that the self must change. Because one cannot act without changing. That is the presupposition of that objection, of that Buddhist objection to the Brahmanical theories of self. They say, look, whatever does something, however, in whatever way, it's always itself changing. Like the seed of a tree. In order for that seed to grow, it must disappear. The seed transforming into the young sprout means that the seed is gone. It's destroyed. It's no more seed. Its own form, swarupa, as a seed is gone, is destroyed. And if the seed remains absolutely the same in all respect, like the self, then it cannot produce anything. It's a dead seed, a seed that does not give any fruits. So it is dead. It is a dead seed. So the Buddhists say to the defenders of the self, you're in a dilemma. Either you say that the self acts and then it's not permanent, or you hold that it is definitely, absolutely permanent, but then you must renounce the self acting. And if the self does not act, it does not do anything. It does not cause anything. It does not produce anything. And if the self does not produce, explain, cause anything, then what's the difference between yourself and nothing? Because nothing does not do anything. Then if you say that the self does not act, then it becomes the definition of nothingness itself. So they are put in a dilemma. So they say that, and some defenders of the Advaita Vedanta school, they say, yes, well, okay, the self does not do anything. It is not non-existent, it is not nothing, but it is beyond anything that we can conceive of. It is beyond anything that we can conceive of. Because it does not change at all. So, in a proper sense, it does not act. It's not the cause of the world. The Brahman is not the cause of the world. The world has no cause. And the world does not exist, by the way. So it does not need a cause. Nothing does not need anything as its cause. So the self is just pure being and moving and changing. It has no jñānaṃ, no cognition, no experiences. There are no experiences of the self. The self has no experiences, no good, no bad, no neutral experiences. And of course, no action. Does not do anything. Does not grow old, does not take birth, does not die, does not gain, does not lose. The self does not do anything. Jñānāyattā bahirbhāvā. Outer phenomena depend on inner cognition. So here it's not very clear because as often the word jnana can have many different meanings, and here it's not very clear whether it is jnana as cognition that can be a flow of instant cognitions like in the yoga jhara school of Buddhism, or whether it is jnana in the sense of consciousness, pure permanent consciousness, awareness. Anyway, the idea is that jñānayattā bahirbhāvā, outer phenomena depend on consciousness, whether it is permanent or not. Ataḥ, therefore, śūnyam idam jagat. this world is empty. That is, it is empty of self-existent, of independent existence. It does not exist independently of consciousness. It's just like a magic show projected by consciousness inside her, in her own screen, inside her own bosom, as if space were conscious and had the power to project into itself all this. So, this is another verse that sounds very much like Advaita Vedanta, and Shivopadhyaya, the commentator, quotes one text called the Chandragyana. There are some agamas of that name, Shaiva agamas, but I don't think this quote is coming from any of it. And it is a quote, of course, to the effect that everything is bhrantim, maya swapnopamam. Everything is just a delusion, a mistake. Everything is like magic, like a dream. Yeah. So here again, it is a verse teaching a way of awakening with a very much Vedantic vision, which is quite different from the proper Kashmiri Shaiva non-dual tantric vision. But here you see in that collection we have a collection of ways of awakening coming from various traditions and backgrounds. So it is not dogmatic. It's quite open, supple, maybe pragmatic. And the third and final one for today is 135. Na me bandho na mokṣo me bhītasyaitā vibhīṣikāḥ pratibimbam idam buddher jaleṣv vivasvatah. So, na me bandho, for me there is no nothing binding. There is no bound. I'm not bound. Na mokṣo me, for me there is no freeing, there is no freedom, there is no deliverance. Bhītasyaitā vibhīṣikāḥ. All those are just things to frighten those worthy of being frightened. Things that frighten you, like the things that those puppets you put in the fields to protect the grains from the birds, so that the birds do not eat the grains. This is vibhīṣikāḥ. This is just foolish, artificial things frightening those who are frightened. And it is implied that those who are frightened are stupid, foolish, murkha. Pratibimbam idam. All that is a reflection, buddhe, in the intellect. All that is just a dream. This is what it means, because what exists only in the intellect, without any outer corresponding reality, is just the definition of dream. So all this is just like a dream, a reflection in the intellect without any objective reality. Jaleṣv vivasvatah, like the sun reflected in different waters. That is, one sun without leaving the sky, without moving, can reflect itself in different pieces of water. And if that piece of water there is moving with waves, then the picture of the sun is troubled, is not clear, is blurred. And if the water is very quiet, then the image of the sun is very clear and quiet and unmoving. But in fact, the sun is always unmoving. So those different pieces of water are just like the different minds of different people. In some people, there is a clear reflection of the self, because their mind, their soul, their body and mind is very quiet, thanks to a spiritual self-discipline, mainly of renunciation. And if not, then, like everyone, ordinary people, their body and mind are troubled, and then the light of the self, the reflection of the light of the self is troubled, is blurred. But in any case, whether ordinary person, bound person, or liberated person, the real sun is always as it is. So that the very idea of being not awakened or awakened is pure delusion. It's pure delusion because it's just reflections in the mind, in the body mind, that are troubled or peaceful. But the self, that what I am really, and is never troubled, and all the rest is just delusion, just a mere appearance, like the dream past night. So this is again a very Vedantic approach. Everything is an illusion, is just a dream, is just created by the mind, and the dream is just a product of ignorance, avidya kalpita. Everything is just an effect of ignorance. I do not see the rope on the ground, I do not see it well, and then I project automatically the image of a snake, of a line of water, anything like that. So on the basis of not knowing myself, many things are created. But you see, this is a very negative way of seeing all that. Of course, according to Kashmir Shaivism, there is some ignorance. Without that, nothing would be possible. But that ignorance is freely created. It is willed by consciousness, because consciousness is desire. So that's a huge difference with huge consequences, because according to Vedanta, everything must be excluded, and the awakened experience is a purely unitary experience, that there is no content. It's just pure experience, anubhava matra, just pure experience, with nothing is experienced and no one experiencing it. Whereas in Kashmir Shaivism, everything is included. So everything is there, remains there, transformed by that new insight. But it's not exclusion, it is inclusion. So that makes a huge difference at the practical level. That's all for today. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.